My name is Rachel Rofe. I created this show because I wanted to help you see that if you have a choice, you can choose a better life. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in a pretty fortunate position. You have free will, ability to connect to the internet, and access to all kinds of new education. This podcast is meant to help you make the most of your good fortune. We talk with all kinds of people here from all walks of life because I want you to see that no matter what your situation, there's always a way to create a life that you're proud of. Hello! Today's episode is all about money. So we're going to talk about budgeting and just how to start making your money feel better and work for you. Right now, if you're listening to this when it first comes out, which is December, it's just the perfect time to be able to talk about this because there's the whole holiday thing where a lot of people are feeling pressure to just spend. And if you haven't yet listened to the podcast with Becca Piastrelli about how to get through the holidays, definitely recommend that one because she addresses a lot of this. But also, it's just really great because we're about to enter the new year. So this is a time where you can start with a fresh slate, make new money goals, and start to really change around your money story. Just to give you a little bit of background, for me, the whole finance thing has been something traditionally I don't feel like I've been so great at. I've been an entrepreneur since 2006, really all my life, but full-time since 2006. And I've just always been in the mindset where if I needed more money, I would make more money. It worked, so I would just have these months where I would just spend all this money, like crazy amounts of money, and not think twice because I would just think, if I need more, I'll make more, no problem. And it worked kind of until it didn't anymore. Not too long ago, I was just kind of trying to reassess what I wanted to do in my business. I realized that I didn't have a lot of time for spaciousness around thinking about things because I still had bills to pay and I had accrued all these expenses that I didn't really need. And it just kind of made me think, well, what happens later on if I have kids, or what happens if I get sick or something? Like, am I putting myself in a situation where I'm just going to have to push hard for the rest of my life every time I want to make more money? And it felt just really overwhelming. And I think that so many other people are in this position. Maybe it's not my exact thing where they felt like they could just work harder to make more money. But I know for so many people, it's just money and finances are this just overwhelming, nebulous thing. So many people are up to their eyeballs in debt. They don't want to look at their finances because it just feels like it's too much. And it's just not good. So this podcast is just about some of the things that I've learned in the past few months. For me personally, I've made gigantic money strides. And I wanted to go over some of the steps that I've taken because, you can look at books and stuff. A lot of the money books are dry. And for me, I've realized that a lot of it just comes down to 3 simple steps. And I think it's the same for probably you too. So the 3 steps we'll go over, and they might sound like common sense, and they are, but I still think that a lot of people don't follow them, me included, up until, the past few months. So that's what we're going to do. The first step that I've realized that is super, super helpful for both me and students who have been doing this is just track what's coming in and what's going out. You may have heard me say this in a podcast before. I remember talking about it in another one. Even if you're in a traditional job, just track the money that you have coming in and going out every single day. So the way I have this, you can download my spreadsheet if you want. It's rachelrofe.com/finance spreadsheet. And I just have 4 columns. One for how much money came in and then any notes about it, so what the source was, and then how much money came out. So how much and what the source was, where I spent it. So I would do that every single day. And then also sign up for mint.com. Now, mint.com is great. It's a free site where you can go and plug in any assets that you have. So if you have any cars, any houses, anything, any investments, and then all your credit card bills, your bank accounts, and then every day you can get a really good picture of what your money situation looks like. You can also set up budgets and things. But this alone is just so helpful because when you're actually looking at the things that you're tracking, you're just going to want to naturally make better decisions. So for example, when I started to lose 100 pounds, before that, I never wanted to know how much I weighed. I never wanted to look at it. It was just a source of embarrassment for me. When I started weighing myself every day, which I don't do now at all anymore because I think you can get too much in the other way, but for many people you need to start getting obsessive in one way to be able to balance out because so many people have been so not paying attention. When I was tracking my weight every day, I was Like, I would think twice about having chocolate cake. I would think twice about having things that I might want, knowing that they would affect me, right? So same thing with the finances. A lot of us do a lot of mindless spending. It's very easy to just grab things that we don't need. And so when you're tracking every day, you're going to start to get clarity. Even when you're in a traditional job, if your money is very fixed, then it's probably almost even better for you to track, because then you really know, well, this is what you're working with. And if you're not going to go and like try to look for freelance work or any other kind of work, then you really need to make sure that your money is less than what you're bringing in, because otherwise you're just going to be stuck in deficit for the rest of your life, which I know you don't want. So step 2, make it a point to bring in more than you're taking out. This should sound like common sense, I know, but we're in this world of just instant gratification and credit cards. And there's all kinds of studies. I'm going to look for them and probably put it in the show notes, but there's all kinds of studies that say that people who are more successful in life, the biggest difference in people who are successful in that are the ability to delay instant gratification. For this step, I just say, just focus and make sure that every day you do your best to bring in more than you're spending. We'll get into in the next step about adjusting your standards and not having to get everything that you think that you want. But if right now you're in a negative and you're spending more than you're making, obviously something has to change, because otherwise you'll just be, again, in deficit for the rest of your life. So this is where you consider like freelancing work or look at cutting expenses. Something definitely has to change. And there's all kinds of ways that you can make passive income. If you want me to create a podcast on that, on how to create more passive income, freelancing work, let me know. I'd be more than happy to. So just comment on rachelroffe.com or ping me on social media, and I'd love to know. I'd love to hear just in general how I can make this the best possible podcast for you. So then the next step is just adjust your standards, especially, advertising and this entrepreneurial world that I'm in. I know not everybody listening is, but there's just always this message of you only live once. You only live once. Get what you want. And a lot of new agey kind of people feel like if you want something, then you can make it happen. The universe is going to conspire once you set your sights on wanting something. It's just not the truth all the time. And I know that this might make me unpopular for some people, but I'm just real talk right now is that if something that you want costs more than you can afford, don't get it, right? Either drop it or you have to create a practical action plan to recoup the money. It's not just gonna get handled because that's the way you want it to be. In the entrepreneurial world, I see all these different sales letters that talk about, take a risk, go out of your comfort zone, spend more than you want to spend, and it's just going to work out. I've seen multiple times people talking about, if you're reading this sales letter and you're hearing about my price and you feel like you want to throw up, if you feel a little bit queasy, then you're in the perfect spot. This is exactly what you need to invest in right now. And to me, that is just so charlatan-y, it just drives me crazy. Because the reality is, again, real talk, there's very little true scarcity in the world. Most offers are going to come around again. If you have someone that says, this is the last time I'll ever offer this, they'll probably either offer it again, because that seems to happen all the time, or you'll find somebody equal or better when you're ready for it. When I say adjust your standards, it's not because I don't think you're worth having whatever you want. It's not because I don't think that you should have a positive mindset, but it's just real talk about it's foolish to buy things that you can't afford because you want them. It's just ungrounded kind of living in a fairy tale land, really. And I know that sometimes on sales letters, there's testimonials from people who said, I didn't think I could afford it, but I took the chance and it worked out. And I remember a couple years ago, I signed up with a coach. I spent $30,000 on this mastermind. And the lady I was talking to, I said, $30,000 is a lot of money. She said, there's just something magical about this course. When people sign up, last year, people who took it, 2 people got random inheritances, and people got this, and people got that, and it just all worked out. And at the time, that's what I wanted to hear, so I did it. But for every 1 or 2 stories like that, there's 10 more that aren't being advertised, because obviously that's not going to make them look good to say that. And the other people are just getting further and further in the hole. So if you haven't listened to the podcast with Jordana Jaffe about how to get out of a financial rut, I think she brought up some really good points. So I'm not saying to be in a weak position of saying I can't afford things. I'm saying either create an actual action plan to be able to create money. Jordana made the point where if you really wanted something, like if your nearest and dearest was going to like gun to the head, if you didn't bring in $100,000 tomorrow or something, like you'd figure out a way to make it happen. So either figure out a way to make happen what you want to happen, or just accept that you're not going to create the money for it and let it go. But don't buy things that you can't afford. Like, I don't mean to drill this over and over and over, but it's just, I know so many people really need to hear that. And so really those are just the 3 steps. Is just step 1, track what's coming in and what's going out. Step 2, just make it a point to bring in more than you're taking out. And if you're not in that position right now, then look at how you can do that. Step 3, adjust your standards and don't buy things that you can't afford. I could go into all these advanced budgeting things, I can go into all these different things I've read about, but I know for me and I know for most people, those are the 3 biggest things. Just don't buy the things you don't need, yada, yada, yada. And the other thing that's really great about this plan is that even though there's people listening to this and they don't want to hear it, it's like, I'm never going to listen to our podcast again, whatever, it's a logical plan, right? So a lot of our buying decisions are made because we feel emotionally pulled. We like the people that we're buying things from, or we feel like we'll feel a certain way when we buy things, or we'll look a certain way. So it's all emotional. But when you get the budget into a very logical kind of place, then you're able to handle it much more level-headedly, which is a great position to be in. And then you'll be able to start saving money or reinvesting into things that are going to bring you more returns. I know you'll feel a lot better. When you're set with your money stuff, it permeates into everything. So you know, like if you're swimming in debt, there's that little overwhelm that's permeating everything that you do. You always have this like in the back of your head feeling crappy. But on the other hand, when you're feeling good with your money, you feel more grounded, you feel more stable. It's just a better place to be in the world. So anyway, I hope that this helps. I hope you're not like, ugh, I don't want to hear this, but that's okay if you are too. And if you have any questions, just post a comment on the blog or ping me on social media. Again, if you want me to make a podcast about different ways to create money by doing freelance work, I'm happy to do that too. I see more downloads on my non-financial things. I haven't tried budget, but like when I made a podcast about outlining a book, I didn't get as many downloads about that. So, but if you want to hear about it, just let me know and I'd be happy to make it. All right, have a fantastic day, have a fantastic holiday season if that's when you're listening to this, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to A Better Life. You can find all show notes for this episode at rachelrofe.com. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you can automatically get access to all new shows. Let's also connect. Just go onto Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram /RachelRofe, and we can talk there. The opinions of all guests here are their own, and I'm not necessarily endorsing any of them. I do want to give you perspective though. And always remember, if you have a choice, choose a better life.